the Democratic National Committee and Obama's White House. In fact, White House logs document that Creamer visited the White House 342 times and met directly with Obama 47 times.
Yeah.
In the end, that is adaptable to Donald Duck's debates, Donald Duck's whatever else he does. But we're going to have this mental. We're going to have Donald Ducks. And the real problem turns out that it's not easy to find Donald Duck costumes for adults, as you might imagine. 5-year-olds, plenty of them. But the other ones are mascots.
We did Donald Ducks in May.
Brad Woodhouse is president of Americans United for Change. After our first video, Woodhouse fired Scott Fogle, his national field director.
We put out a whole blast and a release around the idea that he was, using his name. Right. There was no taxes at that point because this thing's come up repeatedly. And the key here is to have the visual and to have the costume and have the sign. We got so much shit for that blast that, reporters thought it was silly and I do think they're probably still being shot. The reporters probably still think it's silly. But you know what? We ain't talking to reporters. They're covering it. We're talking to voters. Right.
So we'll stop that right there. I didn't realize that it had that still language in there, but basically what we had is the situation with these folks that were caught on camera that were saying that they wanted to actually have, because they felt that Donald Duck was ducking the questions, that they were going to get some folks to dress up as Donald Duck and go out to these rallies. And what Bob Kramer was saying was that communication was allegedly supposed to come directly from the campaign of Hillary Clinton, is what they're saying, and that's what this big stink about this is. There, and they're trying to say that this is a violation of FEC law. Is that folks talking about this? That's not a violation of FEC law, is it?
Yeah, one of the strange things about this country is that we really adhere to the First Amendment, especially with reference to any commentary which might enlighten folk or might not enlighten folk. It's just somebody saying something, and they can say just about anything they wish under these circumstances, under freedom of speech. And Adam, you and I have talked about these things before. It is tragic that here we are going to waste our time this morning worrying about whether or not Hillary Clinton wanted some Donald Ducks or somebody at a particular meeting thought that they might do that. It is interesting, as I watched the debates between the candidates, I didn't hear many of the answers be directly responsive to the questions which were asked by either Mr. Trump or by Secretary Clinton.
Well, Jim, this is a normal morning for me because I have children under the age of 11. So Donald Duck, first thing in the morning, is pretty typical in my world, okay?
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I wish I would have seen more Donald Ducks at rallies, perhaps less Molotov cocktails, although I didn't see any of those either. I defer to MJ for the extremely partisan response.
Yeah, you'll get it, I'm sure.
MJ?
I'm looking forward to it. No, I'm not. Why would I tell a fib like that?
You guys are teaming up on me. I haven't even said anything. It must be something.
Oh no, I'm not teaming up here. I'm alluding to the fact that okay, first of all, I get the whole Duck and Donald and the whole premise behind that. And if there's anything, this guy should have been fired because he failed to execute exactly what he worked so hard to plan. But I said I defer to you for kind of the other side of the Logan pitch here. Where is this important or not, MJ? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I think the problem was, as far as the communication issue that was exposed, was collusion with the super PAC. If I'm correct.
I believe so. Yes, the folks involved. It was connected to a super PAC, and that seems to be the issue.
But this Americans United for Change is not funded by a super PAC. Is that what I'm hearing the potential to be?
Well, this is what the potential problem is. Is that
so? It's not a problem. It's a potential problem. Is that right?
Yeah, because in this country, no one's a criminal until they're proven guilty. So no matter
Oh,
what side of the aisle,
lock her up. Lock her up. Lock her up. She needs to be in jail.
Say any of that. You guys haven't even heard me say half a sentence, and that's definitely not something I said.
Well, the introduction to your statement says what? Exactly what it says. You're innocent until, and we shouldn't be talking about things where people are accused of things. Is that correct?
So the issue at hand.
Oh, no. I wondered if it was correct that your statement would apply across the board or only apply to one side of a perspective.
Well, what I said is that...
We heard what you said. Go ahead and suggest to me whether it applies inclusively or exclusively.
What are we trying to have a conversation about here? Look, I've really honestly just tried to answer your question a few times, and now we're getting off track. What I'm saying is that the issue that we are looking at, the reason that I was contacted to talk about, is that what is being exposed potentially is that a super PACs came about in 2010, and what happened was basically there was a ruling that said that if you have a super PAC, you can donate unlimited money to it. It can come from corporations. There's no cap on the amount of money that you can raise. A regular PAC, but the rule is that they cannot coordinate with the campaign directly. Now, the alternative is a regular PAC. Now, a regular PAC, the max donation you can get from one person is $5,000. So since 2010, the amount of money coming into politics has more than doubled. So the potential issue that they're looking at there, first of all, is was there collusion between the super PAC and the campaign? And so on this video, they have Bob Creamer saying, this came from Hillary. So if that happens, it's a problem. But to make it a little more contextual, Hillary Clinton and that campaign started a whole war on a cartoon character named Pepe the Frog. A couple months ago, they got it registered as a hate symbol with the Anti-Defamation League, and they misbranded a whole group of Trump supporters as deplorable because of it. Now here we are. This lady's got another cartoon character, Donald Duck, right? She's got the exact same context, and people are talking about Trump has a bad temper. She's already gone to war with two cartoon characters, and that's what I think is really silly here.
Is there trademark infringement in some part of this discussion? Is what I'm.
We need to sue her. In addition to locking her up, let's sue her.
I'm going to bring this back down for the average Joe here a little bit. Is this? I keep asking the question. Is this important? What MJ said is you have a ruling in which two people aren't supposed to be dancing together, right? Okay. Did this happen? We kind of have a hearsay. This came straight from Hillary. I can imagine a scenario where a guy might say that to bring some gravitas to what he's saying in a meeting. This weekend I was in Nashville at the Grand Ole Opry, and I'm sitting here, and the guy sitting next to me in the nosebleed section's talking about how the drummer of Jason Aldean's his friend. And I'm saying, dude, you're still in the nosebleed section. If the dude was your friend, you'd probably be down front. Okay, but I get it. You're saying that to make yourself look important in this setting. Could that happen? Possibly. Does it warrant an investigation? I'm one of those that thinks it does matter. I think that the Citizens United ruling has been such a hot topic on debate that if that's going to be the rule, people need to play by the rule, not parts of the rule. If Hillary Clinton's campaign was not playing by parts of the rule, how do we investigate that? And ultimately, what this comes back to, what I think the viewers of this show and to the average Joe in America says, we really don't have confidence in an investigation on Hillary Clinton anymore, Jim. We looked at the evidence as the American people, albeit filtered to the public, and we thought the FBI was a little generous with the press conference. So why would I think anything would be any different? Even though this may matter, do I expect it to ever end up in any accountability? I don't.
You know, the reality is of course that we've had the super PAC development long before 2010, but the question of abiding by the rules, I'm here to tell you that I play by the rules. I expect people to play by the rules in every aspect of their lives. I am disappointed when I know that people are not going to, whether that happens at the local level or the state level in political campaigns or whatever. They need to play by the rules without question. I hear you with reference to we need to compare that to the fact that the FBI had, I've forgotten the term you used, but they were very kind.
Generous.
Generous, I think was the word. As a part of that, we overlooked the issues of the abuse of the American Treasury for the investigations that Congress undertook, which Congress is supposed to have investigative power. But the questions of how much money you spend that are attacking a particular candidate for political office when admissions are made by the chairpersons of the committees who are doing the investigations, that we did that to drive down her ratings. Now, let's go back to the email controversy. It is without question a fascinating fact that the compelling of the use of the government email server is at issue in the first instance. That's never talked about. The fact is that it's talked about in that it is presumably illegal. And not one person that I know has ever expressed a full opinion based upon precedent or interpretations otherwise that the fact that she had a private server is a crime in and of itself. The question
Well, I think people are more upset about congressional subpoenas resulting in quote-unquote bleaching and cell phones being destroyed with hammers. I think when the average person with common sense says, why would you destroy something with a hammer, it pretty much shows some level of intent to hide. And I think that ultimately at the end, when this all goes back to whether or not it should matter or shouldn't matter, I think the average person has no confidence that even if Hillary Clinton was out of line here, even if Congress was out of line with use of Treasury funds, that there's any process accountability in government right now, and that inherently is the problem.
Oh, there's absolutely little question that people distrust almost every aspect of government today. And that's a great problem, and they do so because all we do is we talk about things which do matter, but are of significantly less significant importance in how we improve the daily lives of Americans and our country as a whole. We've yet to discuss here, nor have I heard any significant discussion among the candidates for various offices of how do we change the delivery of health care. How do we maintain a health care system where the middle-class people can afford health insurance? And I alluded to this the last time we were talking about, you dealt with that issue on the county commission, where that in order to insure their family, we have employees that are paying more than 1/3 of their take-home pay to have family coverage. That Bradley County...
And it's getting worse.
And it's getting worse for everybody. Now, sure, Hillary Clinton needs to play by the rules. Everybody needs to play by the rules, without question. But to focus the national attention on a circumstance where we compare her to General Petraeus, and I may have mentioned this before, he gives war plans, theater plans in Afghanistan and Pakistan to a person who is his lover, and he doesn't get locked up, and we're going to spend all of this time talking about whether she should be locked up or not.
To flip the moniker, what's good for the gander is good for the goose. We have filtered the revelations of accusations of sexual inappropriate conduct by Trump through this premise that passed as prologue, that at one point 11 years ago he said these things. So we say, well, because he did this, it gives credence to this in public opinion. So what's good for the gander is good for the goose. Because Hillary had all of this other impropriety, perceived impropriety, however you want to look at it, it makes this probably of bigger concern than would have otherwise been. And whether that's fair or not, I think it's an irrelative debate. I don't think that
the question
matters.
of perceived improper conduct versus what we know out of the mouth of Mr. Trump occurred is of greater significance. I leave that to your fairness to judge. The second issue is with reference to the significance of that act and acts which he began to acknowledge some of, just denied, and then denied all of. Realistically, my decision would not be based on the fact that 10 years ago, or now I think we have one as late as 6 or 7 years ago, things happened, forcible things that maybe people put themselves in a position for there to be assumptions. As I understand it, we had some lady who made her living as a, what do we call those people, escorts, and those things. Now, we ought to be talking about.
We're talking about Bill Clinton or Trump.
Well, let's go to Bill Clinton.
I didn't want to go to Bill Clinton. I'm just trying to get to.
Yeah, the response. I mean, what I'm talking about is the response to the accusation is, let me tell you how bad Hillary treated those people who made love to her husband while she was married. She didn't like them. She said bad things about them. Guarantee you that your wife wouldn't like it if.
Well, anybody who's ever heard a Carrie Underwood or Miranda Lambert song knows that the spouse is not too fond of the mistress.
Not too fond. So let's go back and talk about real issues. Let's talk about mutually assured destruction. Let's talk about balancing the budget. Let's talk about revenue sources. Isn't that what we ought to be talking about, Adam?
Or Donald Duck, if you have four children in the house.
Yeah, well, my 4 children don't get to vote.
Well, I now no longer can allow my children to consume Disney because it's too political.
But I want to vote for what's best for their futures, as opposed to worrying about whether or not some guy said that Hillary was aware of him sending people in Donald Duck uniforms.
Right.
I saw those uniforms or those costumes in almost every election that's transpired. Again, we avoid the issues.
And one of the things that the mainstream media is making an issue of this is, and even Trump himself has said on a public stage and a public debate, that calling Hillary Clinton a criminal. Do you feel that it's fair? I mean, is she a criminal? Do you feel that it's fair for a political candidate on one side during a debate to say that another political candidate, a presidential candidate, is a criminal, or is he just playing dirty tricks?
The concept of fairness is not a part of the political process.
On that,
because we, the people, do not demand that fairness be the discussion. And we would rather talk about whether or not somebody was going to grope somebody 20 times, 20 different people, or whether or not she got angry and treated the 5 or 6 women that Bill had an affair with. We have absolutely decided that we're going to put more water on the dirt so that we can swim around in mud, as opposed to trying to determine a way to make that soil productive. It's just astonishing to me that we start out this program talking about this type of thing, and then we want to go tit for tat. I don't want to go tit for tat. I merely mention that there is a tat for every tit that has been mentioned here, not referencing any anatomy parts.
And wanted to wrap this discussion up, as far as to get mainstream media out of the picture for the American voter. What do you think in the last 14, 13 days are the things that people really need to focus on before they head to the polls? For each candidate, what do you feel is the most important thing? In your opinion, when you went to the polls, you said, I got to vote for this candidate because I feel that this is important and they champion my cause. Mr. Logan, I'll defer to you first.
The great thing is what they actually say about the issues are on their websites. You can go to the Donald Trump's website and you can see his positions relative to the health care issues. You can go to Hillary Clinton's and see the same. You can do the same with reference to the necessity of dealing with a $20 trillion deficit. You can see the positions that they have taken, or the lack of taking of positions on term limits, which many people believe is the source of much of our frustration. You can see their positions with reference to campaign finance reform and the prospect of whether or not there can be some campaign finance reform. You know, it's easy to do the right thing. It's easy to be an informed voter. That's the right thing to do. And then you apply your intellect and your rationale to determining which candidate you believe would be best for our country. I look for the positives in people as opposed to the negatives, and I am so saddened by that approach that so many people take as to the negativism that's there. And I believe that that's leading us down a road to continuing to be divisive, as opposed to coming together in January and say, we will support the President of the United States as the leader of our country. And we will give deference to that individual, at least to the extent of listening and analyzing what the position should be.
And Mr. Lowe, I'll leave it to you. Your thoughts on the last 14 days before America goes out and makes a big choice.
Well, I was going to let MJ comment. He's been so patient on the phone.
All right, we'll defer to you, MJ. Your thoughts the last 14 days leading up to the election day. What do you feel is the most important thing that people need to really focus on and do their research on?
Well, I think that people are, they have their minds made up at this point. The thing that I would advise extra research on is go back and watch the Trump video of him on the bus with the nasty comments and really, really break down and look and listen to what is being said. And I think that you will find that he did not say what he's accused of being said in the way that he said it. When he made a quick apology, it was just to deal with this nasty issue and move on. So when the news media spends 20 minutes to 1 minute reporting a statement versus Hillary Clinton's speech from a bank, a secret speech is published where she says she wants open trade and open borders, and then she quotes herself in a debate. I think people really need to go back and really, really listen and see who was it that was pushing this narrative of being nasty. It certainly wasn't Trump. It certainly, by far, was definitely the media. So go back and look at these things. Listen to the statement he made about Mexicans. Listen to it. And listen to the context. And listen. That is what I advise people to do, to go back and to listen, because these negative feelings and these negative arguments are all based off of exaggerations and fake claims. The whole point was to make people think that there was a problem with Mr. Trump. But when you go and you listen to it, like it was your dad or your brother or someone close to you, you can hear that was not fair. So that's what I hope people do, is that they kind of step back and go, wow, you got one person with a 30-year track record of corruption, and you got another guy who doesn't. So that's where we're at.
All right, Mr. Lowe.
Well, without stepping too much on the toes of the show today at 1 o'clock on Man Up America, I'm gonna buckle to the pressure that we've had since day one when we started that show, and I'm gonna dedicate today's program to democracy and politics, and I'm gonna be pretty transparent. And I without stepping too much on that show that's going to happen at 1 o'clock today, I will say this, that our democracy is a dysfunctional marriage right now. And whether or not it can be fixed is still uncertain. I think all of us carry optimism, but when we rationally break it down, there are real barriers. And this election is an incremental incident in the timeline of democracy going forward. It has very serious implications. I am one that votes on issues that people can affect change on, and when it comes to the commander-in-chief, They are primarily the commander-in-chief of our military. We can talk about all these things that are state-regulated issues. The presidential policies related to those issues have very little influence on what happens in those issues. So I'll encourage voters in the last 14 days to pay attention to the actual things that a candidate can affect change on. That being said, once again, without stepping on today's toes of the show, I want people to tune into that show. I think it's important for voters to ask themselves the central question of whether or not we can trust the things we hold dear. Specifically, and related to what we just talked about today, we have not openly yet talked about, and a lot of people aren't bringing up the fact that collusion with the press is a threat to freedom of press, which is central to our voice and there's the reason we have freedom of press as a part of how we approach democracy in the U.S. is so that we can trust the validity and the trustworthiness of the information we get, and to find out that potentially more than a Donald Duck conversation, that key members of the media were intentionally engaged in spin. These aren't talking heads. These aren't commentators. These are people who position themselves as factual reporters, and steering the narrative is more disturbing to me than some Donald Duck showing up to try to see if he can flip a sedan.
Right.
We need to rely on our own individual integrity as opposed to assuming that integrity exists in everyone else. But there are information sources available where that you can test the characterization of an announcement by one of the people who spoke today that somebody did something wrong even within this show. The tragedy that we have is we have decided to cede to others who are best entertaining for us that a statement meant something different than what was said, or that a characterization of a person's approach to a problem is a bad approach. Listen to the approach, read about the approach, and rely on your own intellectual integrity as opposed to characterizing others.
And with that, we will...
Well, hang on real quick.
Sure, Josh, go ahead.
If we don't have time, we've got busy calendars here, busy schedules. If we don't have time to get together between now and Tuesday, Election Day, I want to make sure that we make it a point to get together the Monday before, perhaps us, again, MJ, if he can join us, and we'll just go into this with what's happened the last 2 weeks, what do we expect tomorrow, and have a little fun with it. Maybe we'll do some pick-ems, like sports, we'll do the over-under and go from there.
How many? Their own electoral map.
Yeah,
how about that? Predictive electoral.
If you can go to electoral map, Google that, and there's interactive ones, and you can color it the way you want it, or the way you dreamed it would be, or the way you think it will be.
I predict Donald Duck takes Ohio.
Right.
But
we'll
we can
see how it ends
regroup
up
on Monday before the election for a little while, and we'll just cap this off, this discussion.
And I want to thank all of our guests who contributed to the conversation. It's a hot topic. Whenever you talk about politics, everyone has very strong opinions, and folks, our viewers out there, we want you to be an informed voter and look to us as an independent source of being able to talk very in depth about topics that other people are talking about, to the extent where we can actually maybe get to some substance as opposed to just talking points. So I appreciate my commentators. Mr. Logan, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your opinion. Mr. Lowe, please stay tuned at 1 o'clock for 105 live.
I may actually destroy any professional reputation I have left, Jim.
I don't believe
I
that
may
will
need
occur.
your services.
Let me share
when
with
this
you.
is.
I have great confidence that you
What's
will man
left,
up.
Josh? What's left? What's left?
So Man Up America is Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 1:05 p.m., and that is live simulcast on WTNB as well as Talk 101.3 The Buzz, correct?
Yeah, and I want to encourage everyone to go to WTNB's YouTube page. If you didn't get a chance to see what aired yesterday on our first series with guns, I do want you to take a look at that. I think having Rob in the studio in that event, we went through some, like I said, regardless of how you feel on gun policy, to understand exactly what you're referring to when people, and understanding what people are talking about when they approach gun policy. So we went through the pragmatics of use of those firearms, what they meant, what they represented, and how they function. We put our twists and our views on things like we always do, but get a chance, go and actually see that recast.
And if you go to our YouTube channel, just go to YouTube, type in WTNB. We're the first channel that pops up. Take a look at all of our videos. We got highlights from, we got episodes from Man Up America, Nancy's Neighborhood, as well as our Sonova Game of the Week. And thank you guys. Thank you, MJ, for joining us as well. And we will circle back with everybody next week. Friday, tomorrow, we'll be live at Bird and Barn. And then that replay of Bird and Barn will actually air on Friday morning. And also on Monday morning. And we'll be back next Wednesday with a live show here in the studio, and we'll see where our political landscape is at that point. So thank you, folks, for joining us.